So the thing with async and await is that whenever you have something that an async function returns a promise by default, and it can, it can deal with something else that returns promises with it using new syntax. So I'm going to take this whole chunk of code we have here from line 45 to 57, and I'm going to put it into a function and then call it. So we're going to have a new function. Here we could see const add numbers from API. Okay, and blah blah blah. All right, and now I'm going to call this add numbers from API. Open close. Oops, I didn't do this right. Equals. Okay. And then what does this do? It's going to go. I want this to return a promise. All right. So from here I can go .then console.log. All right. So the idea here is that we want this thing to return the final value. So this line 55 swallows it and logs it. We don't want it to do that. So if we get rid of it, then that'll allow it to percolate out all the way to line 61. So let's run that, make sure we're not going crazy. Async.js. Okay. The problem is that this code is super ugly. Sorry, not that code. This code is super ugly and hard to deal with. And remember down here is the old synchronous version that did the same thing. And we're like, oh man, doesn't that look great? I wish we could code that way. This sucks. And what you can do is you can declare a function to be asynchronous. And when you do that, you can now use await inside that function. And you can have it do the good old stuff that you were doing before in a really fun way. So I'm going to leave this garbage here, and I'll show you the majesty of this. So bam, here's our old version. Now I'm actually going to piece this out a little bit just so we can, we'll come back to the kind of condensed version, but we'll do this one step at a time. Oops. This is response one. Parsed data one. Response one. And then what? Number one equals get the value of parse data one. Okay. But now again, these still return promises. So all we have to do is put the magic word await in front of anything that returns a promise, and it's going to act as if we did all the proper then this and then that. Let's see if I'm lying. Bam. Now, of course, we're not adding two numbers. We should be adding two numbers. It's all, exactly. We don't have to worry about closures or whatever all else. Turn number one plus number two. Thank you. Cool. And it can still reject, like it was before. So we should be handling our rejection down here. Okay. So bam, we now have just like glorious synchronous looking code. Now let's tighten this up. We still like this version better. So, oops. So let's do it this way. Number one. No, you can't. What's that? Yeah, await here, await there. It works. Yeah, so whenever something is going to return a promise, we need to just throw the word await in it, and it handles all of that stuff for us. It's not doing it synchronously. I mean, you know, if you were to go off and do a console log or something down here, you'd see those console logs first. And so that is actually, you know, doing the same kind of thing. Like if I'm going to go in here and go, oh, console.log, what is happening right now? Dude. Right? So this is still asynchronous. It's still waiting for things to happen. The event loop is still acting the same it was. All the code is, this version of the code is still what's basically being run. It's just giving you a bunch of syntax sugar, so you don't have to deal with this kind of stuff any longer. Yeah, it's super great. So now what gets interesting is when we start using things like functional programming with awaits and async. So let's add an arbitrary number of calls. So let's say call number. All right. So now we're going to say, I want you to add 10 of these things together and tell me what the result is. And I'm going to reduce my failure rate because I don't want it to always fail. So how do we do this in a...
So it would have been promises all, yeah.
We could do promises, yeah. Great.
API and then use map.
Great, let's do it. Fill map.
Then put API call fill.
All right. Sorry, say again.
We want to put API call in the fill. So that
Const result equals API call. Close. All right. And then we want to do the JSON parser, right? Const first body equals JSON parser of result and return get the value of parse body. Now obviously there's some problems with this. But, so first of all, API call returns a promise, right? So we're going to want to await there. JSON parser returns a promise. We want to await there. And it did something weird to us. It underlined await. And it says, keyword await is reserved. Like, what? I know it's reserved. I'm using it.
Because the anonymous function inside the map is an asynchronous function.
Precisely. Oh. Yeah, this needs to be an async function.
Right. You can't just throw away on something.
Right. Anytime await's being used, it's got to be within an async function. So, cool.
Async doesn't percolate down
So
into
why
the
does
depths of functions you might call further in your function.
Right.
why does the first layer need async as well? You have 2 layers of async to get to.
Yeah, it does. That's a good question, doesn't it?
Why does
So why does add numbers from API itself need to be asynchronous?
Or can it just be the map?
Right. Okay. Let's take that off. Okay.
So the async is happening inside the
Mm-hmm.
function that's happening.
Yeah, but we haven't done anything with this stuff yet. So what do we?
Get it done, reduce, add it on that.
So
All right.
numbers.
Let's make this something. Yeah. Const output equals. All right. So what is output? A list of.
Oh, geez. Okay.
It's not a list of. It's not a list of numbers.
It's not a list of numbers. That's correct. Async functions return promises.
So we got the value from the parsed body, right? So, but
I'm just saying async functions return promises. This is an async function.
Output dot, or to be like promises all.
Can we see what
Promises
it looks
all.
like? Oh.
Sure, you can see what it looks like. Console.log output. Let's see, did I call this right? Add numbers from API, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's a bunch of promises.
Nice.
So that can be confusing. Like, what? I thought that was numbers. No.
Problems that all do essentially want to collapse promises together.
Exactly. So promise dot all output. Now you can do something with it. Dot then.
We just console log that.
Sure, we can log that. Why not? What did I do wrong? We're not really like doing this stuff
It
right.
looks like there's like a brace, curly brace, 72, I think.
Oh, is this an extra?
Yeah, that's well, that's.
Let me get rid of all this junk.
Does it? Oh, I see. That's for the numbers API.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right.
So now we're getting numbers.
Now that's what we wanted. Cool.
Promises dot all. Reduce.
All right. Let's reduce it.
Just write reduce.
Well, you need to pass it around.
All right. So we need an anonymous function. I guess numbers. Yeah. Total plus x. Yeah. Okay. Now let's glue this stuff back in. Okay, so let's glue this stuff back in. We're not logging inside of the add numbers from API anymore. We expect to add log from the then. 58. That's not working any longer. Right. So that's an important thing to always remember. You always have to return from inside your then, otherwise that value gets thrown on the floor. It's still not going to work.
Because we're trying to run what is coming back from the numbers reduces. It's not a promise, right? It's just a number.
But yeah, we know these are just numbers. So that's
You can't run a dot then on a number, right?
You cannot run a dot then on a number. That's correct.
You need to capture the promise dot all, right? Is something?
I think you're going the right direction. What now?
Well, we returning, but like we're not capturing the return value.
Okay, so what should I do?
You could return promise dot all.
Sure can. Bam. Now the result of line 57 is actually a promise when we return on line 51. All right, let's get crazy now. Let's instead of a map, why don't we just do a reduce in the first place?
Ooh.
Come on. Why are we mapping when we could be reducing?
So call number we fill and then map. So I guess.
Let me save this version because the next version is going to be a little more confusing. I'm here to tell you.
That's exactly what I need.
All right, let's change it to a dot reduce. Okay, it's going to be total x. Great.
Then we can just do
Start with 0.
return x plus get that last one, right? Is that what we do?
Yeah, like total
Or total, let's see.
plus. Well, actually, we don't care about x here. Yeah. All right, and then we can just return that stuff. It's going to be so great.
Yeah, that's great.
It's great. It doesn't work.
No.
So it's with promises dot all.
Look at that.
Ooh.
That's awesome.
Is that one number that we got out of it?
Eh,
We got
we got
one promise.
Well, we got some weirdness is what we got.
And then another object.
We got a promise plus a number, and in JavaScript that did that to us. We added a promise to a number. Thank you, JavaScript.
So total, oh, because when we're reducing total is going to be a promise.
Total's going to be a promise. That's right. It's a promise for the total. It's not the total. I promise I'll give you a total. Not right now.
So like total.resolve or something?
Yeah.
Total.resolve? I don't know. There's a resolve method.
Or well, how do you like?
Await the total.
Oh, await the total.
Oh.
That was terrible.
Isn't that terrible?
So few lines of code though.
It's pretty tight.
That's. I think that's. And then,
Let's do some exercises on this stuff. Yeah. Okay, so recursion fiddle 1 is we're just gonna call get sentence fragment. This is kind of as if this were an API call. You know, it's got the data in the next page and stuff like that. So what this does is it's got the word hello world parsed up into individual characters, and it's going to give you 3 of those characters at a time. So you call it once, and you're going to get HEL, and it's going to say the next page is 1. And you're going to call it again with an offset of 1, and you're going to get LOW, or LO space. And so what you want to do first in this get sentence method is I want you to basically keep iterating through get sentence fragment until you've collected the entire sentence, and then console it out. So that's just the synchronous version. And then we're going to go to the asynchronous version. Okay, so this is going to start with the callback method. Let's do this with a callback. We're going to introduce a set timeout on line 4. We're going to give it a callback. You're going to modify your recursive code so you're going to give it a callback, and that's going to work out. And then I like you to change it to a promise. So take the callback out, make get sentence fragment return a promise instead, and then deal with it properly here. And then the third case is change it to await, async and await.
Okay. So you'd like to basically see 4
versions,
steps.
exactly. And what you should see is the result of the first one when you did just the simple synchronous version should look an awful lot like the async and await version that you have at the very end. So 1 and 4 should look very similar.